Hi, Darby. I think we can start the webinar, and I will have Vivian and Patrick to remind our agent to join in. And also with the recording date, I will share the recording to the agents who are not able to attend this time. Just let me use my Chinese to introduce my team to agent a little bit. 各位老师们，大家早上好。很高兴老师们参加我们今天高考后的一场讲座。自我介绍一下，我是欣，然后是 Wellspring 的中国负责人。然后老师们可能除了我之外的话，还会熟悉一下我们其他两个区域的负责同事，一个在东区是我们 Vivian 老师，另一个在我们南区是我们 Patrick 老师。各位老师们，如果有任何的问题的话，在会后或者是在这个会议过程当中的话呢，都可以在聊天框里面呢留言，然后我们进行一个解答。今天我们的这个会议的话呢，主要是针对两个学校，一个的话呢是我们上个月新发布的弗吉尼亚理工大学的一个桥梁项目，本硕桥梁项目。第二的话呢是我们这周刚刚发布的一个新学校，是 LACC 洛杉矶城市学院，也是老师们非常关注的，学生们非常喜欢的这种UC 社区2+2转学项目里面的一个公立社区大学。所以稍后的话呢，会有我们 Wellspring 的同事 Darby 老师以及我们 Daisy 老师对这两所学校的一个基本情况，然后今年的一个招生情况进行一个详细的解析。那还是各位老师们有问题的话呢，我们可以随时在留言框里面进行一个解答。Okay, Darby, I think I'm passing back to you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the introduction. Hello to everybody who has joined us this evening for us here in the US. I know it's morning for most of you on the other side of the world. We're super excited to go over all things AdvantageVT at Virginia Tech, and we're super excited to have Daisy here to present. Before I hand it over to her, just a few housekeeping things. Shin mentioned this will be recorded, so it'll be distributed after the fact should you need to go back and rewatch anything or maybe share with a friend or colleague, family, whatever use you would prefer. Secondly, there is a Q&A function in Zoom. You'll see it in your toolbar near the chat. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to write them in and we can get to them. We'll also allow time at the end for questions where you'll be able to unmute and ask questions as well. So be sure to stick around for that. But I believe that's all I have. And with that, I will hand it over to Daisy for her presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Darby. Yes, my name is Daisy. I'm an admissions manager at Wellspring International. I know it says June 20th here, but for you guys, it's June 21st. So thank you for chiming in your morning to hear more about Virginia Tech. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background on Virginia Tech, it's located in Blacksburg, Virginia, so on the East Coast in United States. It's actually considered to be one of the top-ranked schools in the United States. So we can go ahead and speak a little bit about that. The 20th top public universities, according to U.S. News and World Report, a Tier 1 research university, top 50 National Science Foundation, NSF, and then 79th Engineering World Ranking. So engineering focused school, which would appeal to a lot of your students. So you might ask yourself, why Virginia Tech? Like, why is this appealing and why do my students want to go here? Well, ultimately, their graduation rate is very appealing. So graduation rate of 83%, comparing that to the national average of 49%. So that's pretty impressive. In addition, 82% of undergraduates are employed or pursuing further education within 6 months of graduation. So, you know, these are highly motivated individuals who are going on to pursue master's degrees, doctoral degrees, whatever it may be. And then these students are looking at an average starting salary of around $60,000 a year. And then some of the companies that they go on to work for include places like Amazon, IBM, Lockheed Martin, which is a very impressive place to work for. Over 90% retention rate from the first to the second year when it comes to Virginia Tech for these students. So I want to go ahead and talk about the AdvantageVT pathway. This is specifically for undergraduate students. So this is great for students who meet the Virginia Tech undergraduate admissions requirements, except they do not meet the minimum language tests. And the nice thing about this pathway is it offers direct entry to, one of the best schools in the US, Virginia Tech. So this gives you all a pretty good visual of what this pathway entails. So kind of a little complex here, but I'm happy to go through it. So with this pathway, students earn up to 18 transferable credits that count towards the completion of their undergraduate degree. The level within their Advantage program is determined by their English proficiency, as you can see here. So as an example, if a student were to score higher, so a TOEFL of 78, the student is considered high advanced English proficiency. And in this case, the student only needs to take one semester of classes. So it's a combination of English courses and credit courses. And then if a student scored above a TOEFL of a 74, they're considered advanced English proficiency. So the student will just take the 2 semesters of English classes in combination with those credit courses. And then finally, if a student scores above a 60, a TOEFL of a 60, they're considered high intermediate English proficiency. So they'll have 3 semesters of English classes to complete. As far as this pathway goes, they offer essentially like feedback to the student as they go. And, of course, they're offering credit towards their degree, right? The program offers 3 entry dates per year. So that's the fall coming up here. I believe it's in late August, spring, and then summer. There's no exit TOEFL or SAT for this particular program, which makes it very appealing for for international students. If you're curious about the tracks include business, of course, engineering, science, and then agricultural and life sciences, if your students have any interest in those. So this here just gives you a little bit of a visual of what Virginia Tech is looking for when it comes to coursework for students, high school degrees. So they're looking for, the math, laboratory science. And as far as requirements, if your student is interested in the engineering pathway, which is very popular for international students, they require that 3.5 GPA. So Virginia Tech is very strict when it comes to GPA requirements. So just know if your student has anything below the threshold here, it is a requirement. That 3.5 agricultural, science, and business pathways, that 3.0 is required. And as far as the English language, just wanted to give you guys a bit of a visual that Virginia Tech accepts beyond TOEFL. So we IELTS, PTE, Duolingo, Cambridge assessment as well, if your student happens to have a different form of English proficiency. So you might ask about the upcoming fall semester. So there's definitely still time to submit an application. We have a July 10th deadline. So get your students' application materials collected. And get that application submitted sooner than later so they can get prepared for that August 26th start date. The next semester beyond that is spring semester, so January, so early 2025. So this is the breakdown of the application. Just want to give you guys a visual here. So of course you can go ahead and apply on the Wellspring portal with that link provided. In addition, we do require a $75 application fee. So the student does have to pay that and it is non-refundable. In addition is a completed paper version of the undergraduate application. Along with that paper application are some essay questions, and my recommendation is to have your students make sure to address all the questions in more of a bullet point format opposed to essay. Virginia Tech does like to see that, so there is an essay in addition that's not listed here, that's in addition to that paper copy. So all transcripts and other educational documents that need to be translated to English. And then of course the English proficiency scores, a copy of their passport, and then the copy of a bank statement or a letter of financial support. If your student is accepted to Virginia Tech, they'll be required to submit a $1,000 deposit to ultimately secure their seat. So we can go ahead and talk about the other option, which is our master's track. So similarly, this is an option for international students who would like to pursue their master's degree but do not fulfill the English requirements for the school. The nice thing is they can enter their master's program with 6 to 9 credits that will go towards their master's degree. No GRE is required for admissions to any of the master's tracks. It does offer 3 entries per year for most majors. And then in addition, the decisions for master's tracks are based on the department. And oftentimes it can take quite a bit of time. So I just like to share that with you all, that it can take up to 8 weeks for a decision. But I won't go through this track because it's relatively similar to the previous track, which is for undergraduates. But as you can see, there is higher requirements for TOEFLs for the master's track. So a TOEFL internet-based test of 80, 74, 65. So just a little bit higher and aligns with the number of semesters that the student would be required to take. So pretty self-explanatory there. So these are our current programs participating in the Advantage Master's track. So some engineering focused, so biomedical, industrial and systems engineering, mechanical, civil, accounting and information systems, hospitality and tourism, architecture, urban design, urban affairs and planning, and then public administration. So all very appealing master's tracks. As far as the deadlines for these tracks, it does vary, the application deadlines, in comparison to the undergraduate track. So fall semester, the deadline has actually already passed, so May 1st, but we can work your student towards that spring 2025 start, so January 21st of 2025. So basically our admissions team is going to collect all your students' application materials and then, submit the application on your student's behalf. Below the entry dates, you'll see a bit about the minimum required test scores, if you'd like to reference that for your students that are interested. So finally here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how to apply. So a little bit more extensive than our undergraduate track. So there's that $75 application fee that's required. Our admissions team's going to submit an application on your student's on behalf of your student. So we require scanned copy of college transcripts. Just note that officials will be required upon admissions. And only transcripts from schools where a degree was earned is required. Of course, no GRE is required. Letters of recommendation are required based on a program. I can't speak for all programs, it varies. And as far as that GPA, all the programs require a minimum of a 3.0, but mechanical engineering requires a 3.3 if your student happens to be interested in that track. And all of the applicants for the graduate program must meet regular requirements for admissions to their degree programs with the exception of the English score. And yeah, that's basically the breakdown of the application process for graduate. And similarly to undergrad, your student would be required to submit a $1,000 deposit to ultimately secure their seat within the program. And that gives you guys just a brief summary, kind of an overview of Virginia Tech, the AdvantageVT track. So if you guys happen to have questions or anything, please let me know or our team know.
Awesome. Thanks for that presentation, Daisy. I'm going to go ahead and let all the agents into the room. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question that way, or again, always feel free to write into the Q&A. It seems that we have a question in the Q&A already from one of our agents who was not able to make it today, asking about the ability to, if a student completes one semester in a graduate pathway, can they successfully articulate to spring enrollment? Are all of these majors eligible for spring enrollment?
Yeah. As far as, so basically what Patrick is asking, can they successfully articulate to spring enrollment? So their start date would be determined as, so for example, if a student were to start in fall, they would enter into, one semester. Let's say they did very well on their TOEFL, they would have one semester of English classes and core courses, or excuse me, credit courses, and then they'll advance on after one semester to their other classes, if that's the same question, Patrick.
Patrick, let us know if you need any further information on that question. In the meantime, we've had another submission asking for some basic information on school accommodation, campus environment, food, safety, and employment.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide follow-up links with information on like the campus housing, and hopefully I can also find some information on like safety and employment opportunities. I did mention that some of the graduates go on to work for some companies, including like Lockheed Martin, there's Amazon. As far as after graduation, there's nearly like students get employment within 6 months, and there's like an 80% chance of that. So very likely that the student will be employed after graduation if there's any sort of questions on that.
So along with the webinar video, I would be happy to pass on some of that additional information on, Virginia Tech basics.
Sure. Yeah, I'll go ahead and send some links.
Great.
Mhm.
All right. What other questions do we have today? Right, if we have no last questions, again, if you have any, feel free to unmute yourself, interrupt me, ask your question, or write it in. But if that's all the questions for today, please be sure, should you have any follow-up questions, want a little bit more information about the AdvantageVT program at Virginia Tech, please do not be afraid to reach out to your Wellspring representative, Shin, Vivian, Patrick. We have them all on the call today. They're more than happy to help answer any and all questions. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Daisy, for your presentation, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Darby, and appreciate everyone joining in their morning and evening to learn more. So yeah.
Great. Shin, do you have any closing? Oh, we've got a question. Okay, so this is in relation to the first question that was asked. For example, there are several participating graduate majors. If the student completes one semester in the graduate pathway, could the student be successfully enrolled into spring terms?
So right now,
Oh, go
okay.
ahead.
So yeah, so as far as like the next, if we're speaking specifically about graduate programs, the applications close for fall 2024, but it is open for spring 2025. So students can apply for any of those listed majors for the master's track for the spring start. So January 21st, 2025 is when they would get started. And basically how that works is they would start with you know, either a level 1, 2, or 3. So they'll take either 1 semester of English credit courses, 2 semesters of English credit courses, 3 semesters of English credit courses, and then after successfully completing those, they would advance onto their master's track. So I hope that that is offering like clarity, and they do get feedback throughout the English program to advance on into the direct entry program. But all these students are offered direct entry into Virginia Tech upon successfully completing the English portion program. And they're offered a lot of academic support and tutoring as well. So, you know, that's something Virginia Tech offers for this population.
Awesome. And I mean, I know with graduate programs, it's sometimes dependent on the program whether they offer spring enrollment. Daisy, do you know if this is the case at Virginia Tech as well? Because if that is the case, then it would be on a case-by-case basis, depending on the program the student's interested in.
Yeah, so the entry dates are as follows. So application deadline was May 1st, start date August 26, 2024 for graduate fall semester spring. Application deadlines October 1st, start dates January 21st, 2025. And that's for all the programs that was listed in the previous slides. And you know, I think Darby's going to share the slides with you guys, so you guys can always reference those participating programs, and those participating programs are in our portal too, if you ever forget.
Awesome. Thanks, Daisy. Well, any more questions before we get wrapped up here today? Shin, any closing thoughts before we head off to our days?
老师们非常抱歉哈，然后今天呢，我们的这个 webinar 的话，可能是只针对这个弗吉尼亚理工大学。我知道老师们有各种各样的一些问题，然后包括这个生读的一些问题。有问题的话呢，老师们可以私下联系我 Patrick，然后 Vivian 都可以，我们非常欢迎给老师们做各种这个问题的一个详细的一个解答。然后呢，今天呢，可能这个 meeting 的话呢，都到今天就结束了。然后如果后面有这个更新到 LACC 的一个 webinar 的话呢，我们会给老师再做一个详细的一个解答。非常感谢老师们的时间，也非常抱歉的话呢，今天没有办法做到 LACC 的一个更新。 那我们今天的会议就到此结束，然后感谢老师们的时间。